Well, John Kennedy O'Connor is an entertainment journalist and author of the book, The Official History of the Eurovision Song Contest. So he's written about the contest that has given the world ABBA, Celine Dion and Bucks Fizz. Well, John joins us live from Azerbaijan's capital, Baku, where the glitz and the kitsch, that is, the Eurovision Song Contest, is in full swing. John Kennedy O'Connor, thanks so much for your time tonight. Now it's
a real pleasure. Thank you for asking me. Why did you start with Bucks Fizz? It also, but you're absolutely right.
Well, it's all going up from there then. That's why I started with Bucks Fizz. But we know that Eurovision is all about the singing, the dancing and the interesting costumes. But beyond all that, what is Eurovision about?
Well, it is about that, obviously. Eurovision Song Contest is a light entertainment television show. That's basically it. But it's one that brings different countries together. It allows them to share cultures. It allows them to hate each other if they want to. It allows communities to come together. And it's about froth, it's about glitz, it's about glamour, but it's also about very serious songwriting. It's also about ballads. It's also about launching careers. People can watch Eurovision because they absolutely love it. People can watch Eurovision because they think it's the worst thing on television and they want to have a really good laugh. And there's everything in between. And no opinion is illegitimate. It's a light entertainment television show.
Now, you've been attending Eurovision for years. As you've mentioned in the book, you've been an obsessive since 1971 in regard to this. And you've written about the gamut of events that has taken place there in 57 years. How does this year's list of entertainers, of performers, stack up against previous years?
Well, there's always that mix. I mean, I think there is a very high standard of some very good songs this year. But obviously then you look around and you see the Russian grannies and you see Jedward in the shower and you see some of the awful things that the Austrian pole dancers who've been knocked out. And you think, yes, this is utterly ridiculous. But of course, none of them are going to win. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the song that has the broadest appeal across all of Europe is the one that's going to rise to the top. But there is a very good standard this year, and I've certainly enjoyed being here. This is certainly the most opulent Eurovision Song Contest we've ever seen. I believe Azeri Television have spent something like 50 million euros in staging the competition, which, when you think about the state that the world is in, is really quite disturbing. And of course, this is Azerbaijan's chance to put themselves on the map, to put themselves on the world, to show themselves to the world. And of course, the argument is to show the world a rather false impression of how Azerbaijan really is.
Let's talk about those two things you've raised there. Firstly, in regard to the sheer opulence of this, in this time of economic woes in Europe, where the big word is austerity, to see something that is exact opposite of austerity, how is that likely to shape both performances and audiences' attitudes to this year's Eurovision?
Well, I don't think you can ever project the audience attitude, and indeed some people in some countries who are really suffering may feel extremely aggrieved. But you have to remember it's up to the host to spend what they want to spend. Azerbaijan is an extremely oil-rich country that doesn't have the economic problems that, say, Greece, Spain or Ireland do. Greece, Spain and Ireland are actually paying an extremely small fee to be here. I think it's something like 150,000 euros each, which for 7.5 hours of live television is remarkably little money. But yes, if you look at the show on Saturday night and you think, I'm suffering, I'm unemployed, how come Azerbaijan are putting on this show? That's a very good argument indeed, but that's their prerogative.
On the second point you raised there, with Azerbaijan's fairly appalling human rights record and them trying to seize this to improve their image, and there's been a lot of criticism about the organisers holding the contest there in Baku, giving the authorities there a legitimacy and a promotional opportunity that they shouldn't have had, they argue. Has there been much reaction in Baku to those arguments?
Yes, and it's probably the most thing people are talking about this year is the contest being in Azerbaijan. The songs, if you like, are almost secondary to the agenda this year. I felt very strongly that Azerbaijan should not be hosting this contest. But the challenge is, the Eurovision Song Contest is not like the Olympics, it's not like FIFA, it's not like being awarded the prize of hosting Eurovision. You win it. And Azerbaijan won the contest last year, and it is therefore their prerogative to stage it this year. I think you have to go backwards, and you have to say, should should Azerbaijan television ever have been allowed into the competition? And that's a whole different argument. And the European Broadcasting Union is a non-political organisation. It is simply an organisation of broadcasters who share programming. It is not really their role to say who has human rights issues when it comes to a light entertainment television programme. But I am very personally disturbed. I've been here for a week. I'm really escorted everywhere I want to go. I'm not really seen anything of the real Azerbaijan, and I know I'm not going to, and nobody really wants me to. I've been given freedom to say whatever I like, to write whatever I like, but the Azeris do not have that freedom. And I know when I leave on Monday morning, that iron fist is going to be clenched again, and that troubles me deeply.
So, John, there's no glass half full view here with the eyes of the world on it, that perhaps the Azeri authorities will change their attitude and their policies towards many issues, including their approach to human rights.
I would think not. I mean, this is an absolute monarchy. The president and the president's family, and he inherited the presidency from his father, have absolute control over this country. And now we've never been in a situation where Eurovision has been held in a country like this before. But I'm here because Amnesty International said, no, please come. I don't mean to me personally, but they wanted journalists to come. They wanted everyone not to boycott Baku, to come and see how it is and help improve human rights. And if you look at it from the point of view that the people on the street are seeing us, they're seeing Westerners, they're seeing free journalists, they're seeing people, they're seeing gay men, they're seeing everybody who is not seen in their own society here in Baku, it will hopefully help colour their opinions, and they will see there is another way other than the life that they currently experience.
Talking about what will be and is being staged in that big stadium behind you, it seems this year the past is big on the stage there. I've noticed a lot of 1970s hairstyles are back, or maybe they haven't gone away with some contestants, I don't know. Engelbert Humperdinck is there representing the UK, as you mentioned before. The Russian babushki, the Russian grannies are there. So is age, in a sense of the past, almost revering the past, seen as an advantage, at least at this year's Eurovision?
Well, it could be. I mean, I thought when you said 70s hairdos, you were talking about me there for a second.
Never.
But yes, you could be right. I mean, Eurovision is really a young people's show in terms of who participates, who goes out and buys the music, etc., and indeed who comes to see the show. But the demographics for the viewers is quite different. And really, particularly in the UK, the Engelbert is indeed the Eurovision audience. Those are the people who will be watching on Saturday night. The 16-year-olds are going to be out having a great time with their friends. They're certainly not going to be watching the Eurovision Song Contest. I'm not quite sure I do understand the whole Russian granny thing. I'm rather cynical about the whole thing because I don't believe the backstory for one moment. They are a very cynically created product. They're actually advertising a fizzy drink all the time that they're here, and that commercial is running on Azeri television and Russian television. It's not the story of these simple, lovely ladies who've just got together to sing in a choir. But that's the fun of Eurovision. And, you know, great to see the grannies here. I just hope they don't win.
Oh, you've ruined my image of the grannies now, John. Gee.
Oh. I'm sorry.
So the final...
and who'd have thought it? When 76-year-old Engelbert Humperdinck was chosen to sing for the Eurovision, he'd end up being the junior member of the partnership. The old ladies have beaten him out.
So the final is tomorrow night, Saturday night, local time. Who do you think is going to win?
Well, I hope it's going to be Italy, but of course I'm not that daft to go with the best song. I know that's never going to happen. I have a feeling it is actually going to be Serbia. Serbia won the contest a few years ago, and I suspect they're going to win again this year. But the hot favourite is Sweden. It's leaving me a bit cold, but Sweden are the winners. Lovely story yesterday. The Turkish commentator said to the Swedish commentator, their song is called Euphoria, and he said, could you please tell me what euphoria means in English? It brought the house down.
There'll be plenty of moments to bring the house down, both there in Baku and I'm sure back here on Australian TV. John Kennedy O'Connor, pleasure, privilege speaking to you. Thanks very much.
Well, I'm very honoured. Thank you for asking me.